All right. Hello, hello, everybody. It's good to see you all. I'm going to put you on the gallery view too, because I hate that when my face looks gigantic on my screen. Um, you had sent us a lot of questions, and I wanted to answer them in my spiel here. So I have some prepared remarks, and then we can go ahead and talk and ask questions if you all have some. So I'm Pamela Swartz. I'm running for state senate. I grew up in Reading, right in the district. I have two small businesses. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, environmentalist, as Cheryl said, and I'm just slightly horse obsessed because that's why the reason why we have our cool horse logo on our signs. But to be honest with you, I am not a politician. I never thought I would actually run for state senate in a million years, but I couldn't help it. You know, when we look outside and we see our climate being ravaged by climate change, you know, forest fires and massive floods and droughts and hurricanes that wipe out millions of acres of food. And then I look around some more and I see the people in our district, they're hurting. People are hurting. They don't have the money to be able to afford insurance. They can't afford their copay. Worse yet, they can't afford their medications. And these are our neighbors and our friends and our family right here in our district living on the edge. Meanwhile, billionaires, by the way, just in case if you guys want to know, California had 157 of them before the COVID crisis. I want you to know that now we have 162. Thank God they're doing better. Oh, thankfully. But those guys are raking in the bucks. They've increased their net worth by over 20% in California, which is $140 billion plus. And then we have these corrupt, bribed, paid for politicians. And what are they doing? They're not voting on our behalf. If they're like my opponent and our opponents of the three of us candidates, volunteers here today, they're voting on behalf of their corporate donors. And so I couldn't take it anymore. I just had to stand up and say, hey, you know, we got to do something here. So some of the things that I want to address as your future state senator or as your state senator, obviously climate change, we need to attack it. This is not an issue that we can nibble around the edges and wonder if we can do a little of this, a little of that. No, our time clock is speeding up, it's running out, and we have a threat to all life on this planet. I graduated in forestry from Berkeley, and I really feel that we need somebody who has a degree in wildland resources advocating for us in Sacramento. We don't have that right now. Our North State is home to amazing carbon stores in our forests. And as Elizabeth will attest to, we provide over 2/3 of the drinking water and agricultural water for all of California. So what we can say truly is that our district is California's watershed, and thereby, I believe, our district is California's economic backbone. So we must take care of our climate. So what do? I think it's time for a green revolution. We need to produce our energy from renewable and sustainable energy sources like wind, solar, geothermal, and my personal favorite, biomass facilities. These facilities also produce hydrogen fuel, and it brings our power generation right down into our local level where those local utilities are accountable to people of our communities. I also believe it's really time for California to boot out the fossil fuel industry in California. We're going to get some pushback from some of the building trades and some of the other unions that are affiliated with the fossil fuels, but I think with job training programs, we can definitely get them on board so that they now move into the green energy sector. Number 2 on my list of things to do is that healthcare is, in my belief, it is something that is a human right for people to have, and it is on my radar. So our hospitals, as you know, are short-staffed. Some of them are financially struggling, obviously. And we also have services that are not available to us in our rural districts that are available to other areas of California. We have neighbors and family and friends, I'm sure that we all know, of folks that are literally dying or close to it because they can't afford a doctor. So now with COVID, it's really making it obvious, and nobody I can think of on this call would say that we need to keep healthcare for profit, a for-profit business. The profit motive in healthcare is literally killing people, because when you pit corporate profits against people's health, we lose. So I'm going to really fight hard for single payer in California so that we have world-class healthcare in our district. I do believe that single payer is attainable in California. We had it come to the state legislature in 2017 under the SB 562 legislation, the Healthy California Act. But really, to make this work, it's a matter of scale. And clearly, the larger the scale, the larger the risk, and or excuse me, the less risk per person and per area becomes more feasible. So that's why I strongly support a Medicare for all system. And that also includes long-term disability insurance in that Medicare for all system. So, but while we're going to be fighting for it nationally, while Audrey's there making darn sure that we get it nationally, I really want to fight for it in California. You know, California has 40 million people in it. The UK has 60 million people in it. California's GDP is greater than the UK's. So here the UK is with 20 million more people in it and less money, and they have some sort of single payer. It's time for California to do it too. Now, as you know, a good portion of our healthcare in California comes in the form of Medicare. And so California's current healthcare model actually is just a pass-through of federal money to people in the state. So if we can rely on that money still, then we have a large portion of the money that we already need here to do a single payer, which is why we need a DC administration that is extremely friendly to this idea and keeps money coming our way to the state of California, which is why I say we need to vote out all corporate funded politicians, and I might add in Republicans as well. So also people say, how are you going to pay for this, Pamela? Oh, it's so expensive. Guess what, guys? Those billionaires, they are not paying their fair share. Those large corporations are not paying their fair share. And this is yet another reason why, among many reasons, that I support Prop 15, the Schools and Community First Initiative. So we've got to get that passed. I read recently that it's about a 50-50 or 51 to 49%. So absolutely, we need to get that proposition passed. But again, it's really up to the federal government, I believe, to pass a Medicare for all thing. So we're short on doctors and nurses and tech, so we need to be able to, in our rural district, to give them debt forgiveness programs and give them more fellowship programs. We need more healthcare facilities in California. And just like Elizabeth and Audrey, I know I've heard Elizabeth say this, and I can imagine Audrey as well, it's darn time that California manufacture generic drugs to bring our costs down. Think of also the jobs and opportunities. Number 3 on my list, housing, housing, and housing. It's a human right to have a place that you can safely lay your head at night and you can sleep. We not only need to provide more housing units, but we need to keep people in their current housing situation. In other words, we need to do as much as we can to prevent homelessness. So I support all legislation to place foreclosure and eviction moratoriums during this COVID-19 crisis. And I also support improving rent control laws and financing for tenant rights. And unlike my opponent, who unfortunately is not here today, the politician is not here, the paid-for politician representative's not here, we, the volunteers, are here, I would have voted yes on SB 999, which restores rent control for mobile home parks, regardless of the length of the lease. I also support HUD's Title I home and property improvement programs. But instead of making these loans, I would like to make them grants. Again, remember, it's far less expensive to keep people in their houses than to allow them to become homeless. We have an affordable housing shortage here in California, and I think that we need to work on making new structures, and also well as transforming existing buildings, and now a lot of commercial buildings I think are going to become available because of COVID. So I'm just going to scroll through my stuff here because I want to make sure that I get to some things here. I also it's important to me that we continue financing long-term services and IHSS, obviously, for home health care and especially for low-income housing. Real fast, I'm very proud to announce that, or tell you all that we got the endorsement for the UDW, from the UDW. So also, it's really important to me that our at-risk and as well as all folks in our district are protected during natural disasters and public health crisis, fires, natural disaster, and public health crisis, COVID. So the laws, the flaws of our system are actually being laid bare during this whole time. So I believe that we need to continue to have communications infrastructure laid out in our district. And unlike my opponent, I would have voted yes on SB 1130, which actually seeks to expand internet infrastructure. And then also, while we're at it, I mentioned this earlier about making those billionaires and those multi-gazillionaires actually pay their fair share. I will be more than happy to be the bad guy in the state Senate, making sure that we push through new tax code and making sure that those folks are paying their fair share, because I believe that they've been getting a free ride and it's time that they stop. So anyways, I'm happy to answer your questions. I think it's super cool that we're all able to be here today in a healthy forum. Everybody looks like they have a smile on their face and they look healthy. And I'm very thankful that, that we're able to do this. So thank you guys and Kara for inviting me to do this.
Thanks, Pamela.
Yeah.
I was supposed to read this last time and I forgot to do this when we had questions for Audrey. But if you're interested in asking a question of Pamela or of Elizabeth, who's still coming up, now's your chance. You must raise your hand to ask a question. If you're on Zoom, you're going to click on the participants so you can see the list of names, and below it, click on raise hand. When you're done, lower your hand. If you are on the phone, press *9 and we'll put you in line for questions. You will have 1 minute to ask your question, and you can ask your question to one candidate or to all. Please specify to whom the question is directed, and each person will only be allowed to ask one question so that as many people as possible will get their chance. If time permits and everyone who has asked their question has had a chance to ask a question, then we allow someone to ask another. Okay, so if anybody has questions for Pamela, please raise your hand. Thank you. And I see Susan has a hand up.
Our first hand that's raised is Susan Hammer.
Yes, good morning. My name is Susan Hammer, and it's very nice to hear your presentation. I also concur in terms of we need to transition to sustainable energy. Unfortunately, the governor has been approving a lot of fracking. What would your position be on fracking, and how can, again, I noticed you did mention the trades as being not quite on board yet. How would you accomplish both of those, get rid of fracking and get the trades on board?
Those are awesome questions, and I appreciate the opportunity to let you know that my opponent voted yes on fracking in California. I don't know if that's a result of the fact that he gets a lot of money from the fossil fuel industry. One would have to think that's the case. So I really do not believe that fracking is a sustainable source of energy, as we all know. It's quite pollutive to our precious water sources in the state as well as elsewhere. So I am absolutely against fracking. In terms of how to persuade others in the state legislature to vote on our side, in other words, the people and the environment side. Some of you don't know me personally, but I'll just let you know that I am not a quiet individual, and I have a little bit of hyperactivity and I have a lot of passion. So I think when you add those three things, and I think I'm a likable person, I'll give you street cred when you need it and when you deserve it. But in the meantime, if you're voting against us and the environment, I'm going to let you know that I don't agree with that. I'll let all of our constituents in our district know, and I will also let those folks' constituents know. So if you happen to be voting against the best interest of the watershed of the state of California, our district, I will make sure that the constituents of the legislator who's doing that, those folks also know that that person is taking, I would imagine, some money from the fossil fuel or some sort of corporation that's causing them to vote against their own folks. So that's one thing. In terms of getting rid of the fossil fuels and bringing the building trades and those folks on board, part of the Green New Deal, if any of you have read it, it's not legislation, it's a framework in which to work, and it has a 10-year timeline. 10 years is not a lot of time to get ourselves together and organized. In 10 years from now, we could probably guarantee that we're not going to be sitting here doing this. we're going to be running from our lives again and still from wildfires and natural disasters. We don't have time to futz around with any of this. So I think it's very important to let the workers and the unions, who I have some support, not the building trades, but a lot of the other unions, to let them know that we have their back. And part of that is offering job retraining programs and making sure that they see themselves where they are today, they're fossil fuel employees, and in the future, transition them into green technology and green infrastructure employees, giving them that pathway. That is the job of leadership and foresight into the future for our sustainable future. Is the annual, oh.
All right. And there are no further hands raised at this point, Cheryl.
Oh, thanks, Henny. Go Bernie. Can I say it, Henny? Do you mind if I let everybody know? Can I say it? She dated Bernie Sanders in college. I think Bernie actually just endorsed Audrey Denny.
Yes, I think Bernie did too. Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, I just want to say thank you again for everybody. I love all your smiling faces. I love your clapping hands. If there's anything that I didn't cover where you have questions, please feel free to, I'll put our email and the website. And of course, if you like what we say and you like the fact that I'm going to fight like crazy for all of us, then please donate to our campaign. Phone banking and text banking, we're going to be, we already are doing. We could definitely set you up with that. And then also we're doing some radio ads actually right in your district of Shasta on your Fox News affiliate. And I'm going to be actually on KNCR on Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock with Carl Bott. And he asked me not to be mean to him this time. Oh, I don't know what that means, but yeah, so I promised him I won't be mean to him. And if he promises me not to ask me questions about the Second Amendment and immigration, because I could be a state senator for 100 years and I would never see those things come across my desk. So anyhow, I just want to say thank you so much. It's wonderful. I'm so glad to be sitting here with the other volunteer candidates who have our backs. And it's a shame that the paid representatives couldn't find time to be here. Thank you so much.